Okay, so let's get right into it. We're going to cut through all the political noise, all the media hype, and look at the cold, hard, realistic calculations happening right now between the United States and Iran. We're going to dig into the on-the-ground factors that could actually lead to a conflict that would honestly change everything.
And this quote from our source material, man, it just sets the stage perfectly. This isn't just another military exercise or some kind of political pressure campaign. What we're looking at is something fundamentally different, a moment that key analysts believe is truly historically unique.
And that's really the heart of the matter, isn't it? If you think back to the lead-up to conflicts in Iraq or Afghanistan, Washington had a plan. It might have been flawed, sure, but there was a plan from start to finish. This time, it's different. The U.S. has brought an incredible amount of power to the region, but it's facing a scenario with no clear exit strategy. And that creates a level of uncertainty that we just haven't seen before.
So, let's break down this first big piece of the puzzle, America's strategic dilemma. It's this paradox, right? The U.S. has this overwhelming military might, but as you're about to see, that power comes with some massive, unprecedented problems of its own.
And this right here is the question that's probably haunting military planners in the Pentagon. It's one thing to launch a massive strike, but what happens on day 2? What about day 3 and the week after that? Right now, all the pieces are on the board. The military indicators are all there. But the strategic plan for what comes next is terrifyingly incomplete.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the sheer scale of this buildup. Our sources compare the assets we're seeing now to those used in a recent 12-day conflict simulation. And as you can see, the numbers are nearly identical. In American military thinking, you don't deploy this kind of force just to make a point. This is the kind of setup you use when you're preparing for a sustained and potentially very long war.
And it's not just about the hardware. This is not a bluff. The U.S. Treasury has reportedly already set aside an estimated $25 billion just for a limited, rapid strike. When that kind of money is officially on the table, the situation is deadly serious. This is tangible, financial proof that the intent is real.
Okay, so this is the crucial question. How could the U.S. realistically win this? Well, according to its own military doctrine, there are basically 3 ways to do it. You can either overthrow the regime entirely, you can completely obliterate their ability to fight back, or you can hit them so hard and so fast they're forced to surrender politically. The problem is, when it comes to Iran, none of these options look truly viable.
And here's exactly why. Iran isn't structured like a conventional army with one single command center. They've very cleverly divided the entire country into 54 autonomous military regions, so you can't lend a single knockout punch because there's no single chin to aim for. Any strike would just be the beginning of the fight, not the end of it.
Okay, let's flip this around now and look at it from Iran's perspective, because this is where things get really interesting. We have to understand the huge shift that's happened in Iran's military thinking. They are not playing by the old rules anymore.
This slide just lays it out perfectly. The old doctrine, strategic patience, that's gone. That was all about taking a hit, assessing the damage, and then responding in a very measured, proportional way. The new doctrine? Full-scale engagement. And it means exactly what it sounds like. Any attack, no matter how small, will be met with an immediate, all-out regional war, period.
And what makes this new threat so incredibly credible? Well, this right here. Hypersonic missiles. They're solid-fueled, which is key because it means they can be prepped and launched in under 20 minutes. Plus, they're just too fast and too precise for most of our current defense systems to even have a chance. This technology completely changes the rules of the game.
And the speed of these things, it just fundamentally rewrites the battlefield. From the moment one of these is launched, it can hit Tel Aviv in just 3 minutes. That is virtually no time to react, no time to even get to a shelter.
For the tens of thousands of American service members at bases in the Gulf, it's even faster. The flight time drops to less than 1 minute. That's not a warning time, that's just impact time.
And this threat isn't just contained to the immediate area. The major U.S. strategic base at Diego Garcia, which is a critical hub for American power, can be hit in just 10 minutes. The entire strategic chessboard is at risk from the very first moments of any conflict.
All right, let's talk about a very common belief in the West, the idea that you can defeat Iran without ever firing a shot, just by crushing its economy. Well, our sources argue this is one of the most dangerous illusions in geopolitics today.
This is the strategy that's been in play for years, right? The thinking goes, if you just squeeze the economy hard enough, the people will eventually rise up and the regime will fall. But does history actually back that up? Well, the realistic answer seems to be a hard no.
Just look at Venezuela, inflation over 1,300%, and the regime is still there. Or North Korea, which has gone through widespread famine, and the Kim dynasty is still firmly in control. The fact is, for these kinds of states, economic collapse just doesn't equal regime change. And here's the bottom line. The thing that actually triggers a collapse isn't an empty bank account. It's a military that's no longer loyal. As long as the officers and the soldiers are getting paid, and as long as their loyalty is secure, the regime can pretty much withstand any level of economic pain.
So how do they keep the army paid through all those sanctions? Well, they operate in the shadows. Iran is estimated to generate $43 billion a year completely outside of the global SWIFT banking system. A lot of that comes from complex oil deals with China. That money, in cash or crypto, goes directly to funding the military, completely bypassing the sanctions.
So all of this brings us to the final and frankly chilling question. How will we know when the time for talking is really over? Well, there are very clear on-the-ground signs that signal a conflict is no longer just a possibility, but an immediate reality.
These are the three big indicators you need to watch for. First, the U.S. president cancels their weekend plans to stay in the Situation Room. Second, you suddenly see hundreds of commercial flights to the region getting canceled. That's to clear the airspace for warplanes. And third, the commander of U.S. Central Command, the person who would literally conduct the war, shows up in Tel Aviv for final coordination. When you see those three things happen together, the war has, for all practical purposes, already begun.
And we'll end on this final thought from our sources. A war between the US and Iran wouldn't just be another regional conflict. It would be a historic turning point. And the quiet we're in right now, it might just be the last moments of calm before a storm that truly reshapes the world as we know it.